Hello, what is going on, everyone? How are you? Welcome to Monday Night Lights. I am your host, Keisha King Benton, and welcome to the place, the only place on the internet where we shine the light of truth. We cut through the shadows of deception. That is what we do over here, and strengthen the faithful. We are a Bible-believing Christian conservative community exposing the darkness of the enemy in faith, culture, and politics. Yes, this is I'm trying to read all this because I want for people to know what we believe over here. We keep it classy, a little feisty, a little passionate, let's just say, but always rooted in the word. So buckle up because we're going all in. We have a special guest with us tonight. You guys are familiar with him, my good friend, Mr. Teach'em Chuck Littleton. Chuck Littleton, who goes by Teach'em Chuck. And we're talking about truth. I've been doing a lot of talking about truth, deception, but I wanted to, as y'all know, go even deeper on truth, but more so, how do we get it? And when we hear it, how do we know if what we're hearing is actually true? And then, excuse me, we need to talk about facts and truth, because when Jesus came, he didn't say, I am the way, the facts, and the life. No, he said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. And we want to figure out, how do we get to the bottom of things? How do we figure out what exactly is true? Because Satan can use facts. He can use facts. In fact, when the enemy is trying to deceive you, it's going to sound good. It's going to satisfy all of your fleshly desires. It's going to, when Satan is trying to woo you in, it is literally going to feel like it's right. It's going to sound like it's right. But the Bible says that the enemy comes as an angel of light. So my point is, it's not going to be obvious when the enemy is working through somebody to try to deceive you. It's going to sound like the truth. That's why we have to do what the Bible tells us. We have to try the spirit. We have to test the spirit, and we have to observe the fruit. So we're going to be looking into how we do that. So we're going to take a few clips, and I'm going to have my good friend Chuck help us go through determining what is like, okay, here's this statement that this person made. How would one go about first seeing if this is actually factual, and then digging more into finding out, is it the truth? Meaning, is it biblically aligned? So, all right, you guys, let me bring up my good friend. Hello to the chat. Let me just say that. What's up? What's up, Chuck? How are you?
Oh man, I'm doing all right. You know, it's been a long day, but I've been looking forward to this. So
Yes,
let's
I
get
am too.
it popping.
Chuck and I had talked about this a few weeks back when I was working on the series, What God Does the Black Church Worship. Hey, Jesus loves you. Hey, A2R, everybody in the chat on Facebook, on Twitter. Realtor Karen. Let's see. Paul. Hey, Paul. All right, y'all. Let's just go ahead and get into it, because we do not want to be before you long, as they say.
I'm gonna track you. I don't know how much class I got, Keisha, but you know,
I'll
try.
have the class for you
Okay.
if you need to hear
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I'll let you. You got to make up for what I lack in class. You got to make it up for me. You got to make it up for me. I was tripping out too, because for the first time I was looking through your YouTube channel.
Mm-hmm.
And I was looking at some of your old videos and looking at some of the numbers that you were getting. I was like, wow, I didn't know that some of your videos, especially when you started covering the Carmelo Anthony
Oh yeah.
situation. I guess that really struck a chord with people, and they really began tuning in. So
Yeah.
congratulations on that. I didn't know those numbers was booming like that.
Where we are doing it, it's because of people like you and truly the Holy Spirit, because I couldn't get a viewer in the last.
You gotta keep trying. Yeah, you just gotta keep going and going and going, and eventually,
Exactly.
boom, something will happen. You
It's
know,
been a struggle, but God is good, and who it's for, it will be for. Who it, who
that's right.
it, I can't control that. It is in the hands of the Lord. We're just going to stay on assignment and
Hmm.
expose the works of the devil.
Yeah, amen to that.
Especially when people name the name of Christ. I can't, that that really, that gets me going. That's when if you want to see me come out of a bag, that's
Right.
probably how. But let's start with Tucker. So we're talking about Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens. They got this whole big thing. Everything is Israel, 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 Israel. I even came across a clip today with Megyn Kelly, who had on Marjorie Taylor Greene, and she's like, I don't like this. I like Megyn Kelly. I'm like, Megan. She's like, this pressure that I'm feeling. Why is everybody trying to get me to go to take a trip to Israel? I don't know why I'm feeling so much pressure lately. And I'm like,
This is
all
Megan
right.
Kelly saying. This is Megan Kelly saying this.
This is Megyn Kelly. She's
Okay.
very good friends with Charlie Kirk. She's very good friends with Ben Shapiro. And so they were talking about APAC and da 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 da. And so I don't know. Maybe if we get
No,
to it, we'll pull that up and look at
this
it.
is
But right now,
Megan Kelly, and Marjorie Taylor Greene were talking about APEC.
yes,
Okay. Okay.
yeah. And Megan was pretty much like just trying to understand the conversation, but she said, I feel like I'm getting pushback sometimes, that I don't want to go to Israel. And okay, like I just can't imagine. I don't see, I've been involved in politics since like 2018.
Mhm.
And pretty, I pretty around the big Bendis, CPAC, and I never spoke on the CPAC, the main stage, but I did speak at different, CPAC events. I've been around this thing. I have never been pressured for anything about Israel. Like it,
Yeah.
what is crazy?
Mm.
Most Republicans who even claim to be Christian, when you see them behind the scenes, when you see the stuff going on, they don't even look like like it. This is not like these just pious religious people. That, I mean, what are we talking? Anyway, it's
Mhm.
just phony to me. It's just so phony. That we got to pretend like everything is just Israel, when I don't even hear nobody talking about this stuff. Anyway, let's get to this first clip. Because I want to take it back. This is a throwback. So we're going to take it back a little bit to where this first started.
Shouldn't have gone into that Second World War.
Yeah, and that is a radical statement. People don't know how to deal with that because we've all been so brainwashed by the school system to believe that, oh, look how great things are. Let me ask you about your country. Do you think that your country has become greater since? Has our country become greater since? Absolutely not. This whole idea of international liberalism. Now it's not just about your problems, it's about solving the world's problems. Let's make sure that in Pakistan there's a trans flag waving. No, I actually, if Pakistan does not want to wave a trans flag, I don't even want to wave a trans flag, but why is this my business? And they're constantly trying to pollute you to make you think that it is your business. No, I actually am comfortable if that's going to be the newest smear that I have to wear, that we're isolationists. Good. I want to be concerned with just America's problems. As soon as those get resolved, I'm happy to peek up our head and say, oh, well, you know what? There are our friends over there in the UK. Let's see how they're doing, if we can help them. But America first.
All right. I mean, okay, so how we're going to do this, I'm going to basically play devil's advocate, because I don't want to just agree. I want to push back. I want to, I want us to think. So when I hear that, what's wrong with being an isolationist?
Okay, am I you want me to respond, or you got? Well, what's the problem with being an isolationist? Wow,
Mhm.
it's funny. I understand that you said that you're going to play devil's advocate. It's just funny to me. Not of course this energy isn't directed toward you. It's
Oh
just,
yeah, no, go ahead.
anyone who would have that position. Um, the answer to the question is so obvious. I mean, it's yeah, it's quite weird. I mean, it's quite strange. I mean, you have to strike up um, alliances and partnerships for intelligence gathering purposes, if for nothing else. Um, the reality is, and the world has never been, I guess, smaller than it is today. You you have to realize, and this is a very uh, kind of snooty, upright position for her to have, because she doesn't realize she isn't willing to ask herself. Well, she talks about solving America's problems. Let me start here, okay?
Mhm.
Um, well, first and foremost, there has to be an America to save. See, this is the same thing when it comes to this whole libertarian idea or libertarian ideal. When it comes to live and let live, it's like, why do we care what other people do? What do we care what other people do with their bodies? What do we care what other people do in the bedroom, in the privacy of their own homes? Or, what do we care if a person wants to change their sex or change their gender? Someone posed that question to me the other day. They said, this whole pronoun thing, and we were making a joke about it. And I said, and they threw it back at me like, what's sort of like the big deal? I don't get it.
Mhm.
And I said, the fact that you have to ask me that question just shows me that you aren't ready for the answer. And
Mhm.
what I meant by that is, and I said, just, never mind, I won't even respond. Because, for example, just with respect to this particular issue of, say, for example, like gender identity, and I'm going to circle back to this notion of isolationism,
Okay.
because see, one's identity isn't a tool by which one I guess they sort of use this concept of identity as some measure or means of self-fulfillment in order to find happiness within themselves. That's not what an identity is for, right?
Mm.
Because your identity is also negotiated. It's a peer-to-peer negotiation between other separate and sentient individuals who rely upon you for, or rely upon you to uphold a certain set of obligations and duties, which help to strengthen or to fortify the welfare of the whole, to solidify the welfare of the community, so that the individual itself, or himself or herself themselves, can thrive and can flourish. You need a healthy context wherein the individual can flourish. Now, what
Okay.
becomes of that context when the individuals involved, or the individuals who find themselves, or for the individuals who are part of this collective, when they refuse to uphold their obligations? What happens to the context wherein the individual can thrive? It dissipates. It disappears. It dissolves. So it's not just about, okay, well, you can simply do whatever it is you want to do, just so long as it doesn't hurt me.
Mhm.
Because what you put into the quote unquote community corrupts the
The whole.
whole of the enterprise,
Mhm.
insofar that I cannot, as an individual separate and apart from you, flourish from within the thing that you and I are both privy to, or the thing
You know what
for
this
with which
reminds me
you and I are both part of. Yes. What's that?
of? A little leaven leavens the whole lump.
Yeah.
You see how truth, when that's
Mhm.
how you a fact
Right.
lines up with truth,
Right.
because the fact has to be principle based at the end of the day,
Right.
when we're trying to elevate to see if this thinking walks out all the way to truth. Because what you're saying, I can vet that by the Bible. A little, that's exactly what you're saying. You're saying a little leaven,
Right.
a little leaven leavens the whole lump. So I'm sorry, go ahead. I just want to show people
Yeah.
how you can connect a fact and back it up with the truth. Sorry.
Right.
Okay, go ahead.
And so when you have now, of course, there are limits, there are legal limits, there are even ethical limits in terms of what actions can be taken when someone violates convention or goes against the grain, so to speak. But what an individual chooses to do on their own accord may or may not harm the community in a way that harms the individual, not in the immediate future, but in the long term. So to kind of bring and that's just kind of putting it in a nutshell. That's just one way of looking at it. But of course, that issue goes a lot deeper. And again, we'll probably talk about history at some point during the duration of the conversation, because history is very important. But Candace Owens, she says this as though this goes back to as though she is living in a community by herself, or look at the United States, as if the United States is here by ourselves and we're not, we don't exist within a wider, a global framework. The question becomes for me, okay, well, what sort of rules are the rest of the nation states, or just put it like this, what sort of rules are other folks who are involved in the game or who are privy to or part of this wider community? What rules govern them? What rules are they playing by?
So when you hear a statement like that, like, is America better since World War II? What's wrong with being isolationist? Okay, so a
Okay.
thought that we should have, one of the first thoughts that we should have is, okay, we're a nation, and we're talking about a nation and how we should move and be.
Right.
What do the other nations? I mean, that's a very good
Because,
point, because
here's the thing.
I can't judge myself independently. I gotta compare us to other people. Okay, we track it. I think that's very okay, got it.
Yeah, because she talks like, well, and this is one of the key things that stood out to me, is that she talks about being all about America first and being able to solve America's problems.
Right.
There's a huge problem with that. It's the same thing when you're talking about embracing perversity and turning a blind eye to it and making it an issue of choice. Right? That's why, I asked the person to whom I was having this conversation with, I said, do you think you believe tolerance is a virtue? Right. And we kind of made a joke about it. And I said, you know what? Don't even answer that question. It's just too early in the morning. Right. But tolerance is not a virtue. Right. If you're so hung up on America first, then what say you with respect to, maintaining the integrity of the thing that you exist in as an individual, Mrs. Farmer, that allows you the opportunity to find fulfillment and contentment with it, in your own individual lane and in your own individual space. May it be all the things that have come to define the liberal project or America. And so if you have this idea of isolate, then there will be no, in so many words, there will be no America to protect. There will be no American problem to solve when there is no America, when you take that track, when you take that approach, because what others do matters. It should matter to you, because just like when it comes to the community, the nation, the natio, the community, the same framework is applied when you extend it on an international scale, and you start talking about other sovereign entities who share in this new world order, this new community. So when she says that, she said something about World War II and are we better off and this and that. I mean, you have to really get into the facts and the ideas and the framework post World War II, and how our ideas of liberalism sort of began to how it began to change, because not just with the, I don't know if you're familiar with the Helsinki Accords, that pretty much kept in place at least the territorial boundaries between East and West post World War II. In so many words, the Soviet Union refused to give up its territories. All right, where the international map in terms of influence and ideology, where it was after World War II, is where it remained until the downfall of the Soviet Union in 1991. I mean, and even after that, it still continued in many respects. Russia didn't necessarily change its ways, but again, that's a totally separate question. It's no longer communist, yes, but anyway, totally separate conversation. But the attitude, especially Keisha, as you probably well know, between the world wars, because you're probably thinking in the back of your mind, you're probably thinking about the America First movement. You had a lot of prominent politicians who were part of the America First movement, JFK and Gerald Ford and Dwight Eisenhower. A lot of these people had this internationalist framework, which in many ways is what allowed for a lot of communist infiltration to happen in terms of our governmental structures, in the United States during that very same period, particularly
I
under.
want to just, I'm sorry, really,
Go
really
ahead,
quick.
go
I
ahead.
just want
Stop
to
me
let
whenever.
you know. So what Chuck is talking about, before, around, or I think around when World War II was about to happen, or was already
Yeah,
happening,
it
before
was
America
about to.
really got into it, I believe.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
there was a man by the name of Charles Lindbergh who had a movement called the America First movement, and he was very anti-Semitic. He said a lot of the same things we hear today. So I just kind of want to say that, so you guys know that this is not new. Like the Bible says, there is nothing new under the sun. And I'm saying that because we hear these things, especially younger people. We hear these things and we think that y'all think that they're new, but they're not new. They are. That's why a lot of people don't even bother trying to, they just wave it off, because a lot of older people have heard the same stuff before. It's some of these things are the same arguments. These things have been, people, scholars, literally all these people have looked into a lot of these things already and discovered, okay, this is where history settles, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, I just want you guys to know that y'all should go and look. This is not a new thing. There was America First movement back in the mid to late 30s, I think it was, right, Chuck?
Yep, mid to late 30s until the early 40s. After the bombing of Pearl Harbor, and Lindbergh, of course, to his credit, would later admit that he was wrong. That he made a mistake, and which is what you do not see much today. People. There's no circumspection, no mea culpa. It's just you kind of move on to the next thing, and people sort of forget the claims that you made, especially like you look at the left and you look at a lot of their wild, outlandish charges and allegations about something or another, or something dealing with Trump or what have you. It turns out to be completely false, and then it's just move on, pretend as though we never said it. But to go back to this whole thing about isolationism in Europe, and just to add more context, to give a little bit more background on the America First movement. Charles Lindbergh, his whole contention was that the United States, this relatively new country, because Europe, much older civilization than we are, and Europe, for all of this talk about black versus white. Right, and these kinds of things. Europe had been racked by wars for centuries. Of course, the old joke was, I forgot where I heard it, but the old joke was when American servicemen would say for example, they would meet up with their English or French compatriots, And the joke was to the Americans, hey, what took you so long? What took you guys so long to join in? And the American comeback was always, hey, man, we thought Europe was just being Europe. It's just business as usual. We didn't necessarily think we had to get involved, because this is what Europe has been doing. This is what Europe has been doing back and forth, from the Punic Wars, the 30-year wars, and Germany and Belgium and France and England, and just on and on and
Well,
on.
then I have a question, because I
Mhm.
hear Candace and Tucker say a lot that is really more so that the Israel and the Jews are the ones that's like pushing America or the world really into different wars. So,
Mhm.
I
But see,
mean,
see,
where
well, see, Keisha,
how do
that's
you
where. Well, see, that's sorry to cut you off, but see, that's exactly you're leading me into my point, and that is that that's why history is very important, because I mean not just in terms of large, full scale wars between separate nations or separate civilizations. I mean, wars can come in a multitude of myriad of different factions. I mean, a myriad of different ways and phases. Say, for example, like you can talk about different ethnic clashes. Sometimes they are intra-national, sometimes they are international, but you're just talking about conflict in general. And if we know anything about conflict, of course, conflict is a part of the human condition. Okay, what those who have a bad, or what I consider to be an erroneous vision of human nature, and of course we'll get around to that as well, this concept of human nature. Well, what is human nature, right? They tend to believe that conflict is the byproduct of a lack of understanding, right? And so it's kind of like this lack of reasoning, a lack of understanding. And if we got the right people at the forefront who could inform the masses, or at least guide them along the path to which they need to go, then we wouldn't have such conflicts. Because the problem was, and the problem has always been, that we just didn't have the right people in control. They don't ask the question. Hold that thought, Keisha. They
Oh,
don't
no,
ask
go
the
ahead.
question of, no, again, war is mankind's natural inclination. The better question is, how do we keep the peace? That is the part that we need to ask ourselves. You don't have to do anything in order to cause a war. It just happens. Peace is the aberration. No war is the thing that's sort of foreign and antithetical to human nature, not conflict. That's natural. So when Candace talks about isolation, again, between the First and the Second World Wars, they tried this. Even after World War II, during the standoff, aka the Cold War with the Soviet Union, at various times, Nixon would take this track, Jimmy Carter. Oh, many people tried this idea of denuclearization, or stopping the production of arms, because see that, Keisha, they believe, right, this is the mindset, the what's the word I'm looking for, the ideology, if you will, of the day, right? A belief, a certain vision, a way of looking at the world, and that was that to disarm, or to slow down, to shrink, to decrease the size. Another thing that people don't talk about is how much American military prowess has declined since the Second World War, the decline of our military, the decline of our naval fleet, and so on and so forth. And this was meant to, according to the ideologues that have been in control since that time, moving forward, is that to disarm was an example of moral strength and courage. And so when you disarm, or when you slow down the production of arms, that will signal to your otherwise, like, or would be foes, would be enemies, that you do not in fact seek war. Once you stop, they'll stop.
Right.
And so to disarm was a gesture of moral courage and strength. Weakness, everything got inverted, everything got turned on its ear, and strength became a gesture of courage. And as a result, once the United States, once upon a time, had what was called a nuclear umbrella over the entire planet, which would have guaranteed peace, right? But instead, when we did that, and of course, the Soviets would eventually acquire nuclear weapons, and then so would China, and so would India, and so would Pakistan, and so would Israel, and so would North Korea, and now we are where we are today. So
it's kind of like I've heard Thomas Sowell say this, like, people they look at poverty and they're like, oh my God, these people are poor. You see that, but they got to do the study, and then they got to look at this group and that group. He's like, we shouldn't be studying poverty, because poverty has been around forever. We should be studying the wealth. How did these countries or people get wealth? Because that is the anomaly, not poverty. So that's what that reminds me of. That sounds like that. Speaking of having these assumptions about different groups, take a look at this clip.
Be the most evil person in the world.
They say that about me, yes. But we have to go a little bit further than to say something's up with the Zionists or Israel. It's not Israel, it is the Jews. And I think that Dave Smith, being a Jewish libertarian, I don't think he's ready to go that far. I don't think he is.
I want to know what you mean.
Sorry, hold on. I think it did. I think I pulled up the wrong one. It's
reminds me, and we could kind of flesh out this conversation together.
Okay,
and
this
I'm
is the
not
part.
Perhaps ready to have it fully, but I do remember going back to Dave Smith, where he was conceding a point on, well, all of these other Middle Eastern countries, no, you wouldn't want to live there. You want to live in Israel. In my mind, I'm going, well, because you just keep bombing the crap out of them if they ever try to get ahead. I remember watching this clip of him saying that, going, why don't these countries get ahead? And kind of going back in my mind to the Gaddafi speech, where he was speaking essentially about, here's what we got to do in Libya to get ahead. Here's what we're going to do with the dollar, and we're going to be progressive and this and that. And they killed him. And then what happened to those Libyan refugees? Suddenly they're now pouring into, just like he said was going to happen, that they were now pouring into the European continent, and Europeans are complaining, who are these people? And so the question is, are we allowing, because I'm like, Africa's a pretty rich country. Like, why aren't Africans controlling the diamond trade? Who's taking all of the diamonds so that they can't control the diamond trade? And how long have these people been doing that, being essentially culture vultures? That's kind of the journey that I've been on now, in terms of really trying to go back and look into history to see what's happened. And I never trust myself when I have a perspective now, because I realize how much of my opinions and beliefs were shaped by the public school system. And so I don't think you're right. I think that there has been a very sophisticated effort to, just like you would say now, in terms of people that are intentionally attacking Anglo-Saxons. I'm just learning about that there were these books that were written to, we must genocide the Anglo-Saxons, that were going on for a lot longer than I realized. History didn't begin with World War II, but I think it would take a lot of time to kind of unpack that.
Yeah.
Like, are we stopping people from getting ahead just because, I don't know.
That just being honest with you, that just sounds to me like a left-wing argument when they say, why don't these countries get ahead? Colonialism. You're a colonizer. It's like, okay, but when we got there, they had no development. When we got to Africa, they had no technological development.
So you think that history. Even if we weren't at war, and sure, you could say that you think that's a leftist argument. I would only push back on that because I've learned so much about just like recent history that I didn't know. But you think that the Middle East, like, if we had done nothing in terms of the Middle East, that they would just be savages and just be like, America didn't do anything it doesn't set anything backwards, and you're just like bombing a place.
Yeah, kind of. I think that we did set them back, because when they don't have political order, it prevents development and investment and things like that. But, again,
might be the most.
Oh my gosh. When he said that, I was like, I know we're not supposed, I know Nick Fuentes is Nick Fuentes and all that stuff. Yeah, he says some correct things sometimes. This is one of those times he said a correct thing. Like, yeah, they have a different culture. It's not, Candace's argument was, they're savages because they're mad at America, because we just been going over there tearing up their stuff. They have been just peaceful. They ain't been bothering nobody. They haven't been doing anything, Chuck. They just have been existing. And America said, you know what? We don't like the way y'all do stuff. We coming over there to bomb you. And she cannot conceive, because her brain is still wired to a leftist, non-biblical way, she can't understand that people have pure evil, which is weird because when you become a Christian, that's kind of one of the fundamental things that you're supposed to understand, because you see the evil within yourself. So you understand that everybody has a capacity for mass evil because it is revealed to you of the evil that is within you. Okay. I just give me your how would one go about if we saw, what would be one of the first things that that we should do if we see an argument or something like this, where okay, here's this country that has never Palestine, quote unquote, Palestine, Hamas. Is it because of America or the Jews or whatever? What would be the first thing where should our mind go?
Well, your mind should go outside of the
You're a
immediate.
little blurry, Chuck. You
Oh,
went
I
out
don't,
for a
I
second.
don't know what's going on.
Okay, there you go. There, you're back.
Like maybe I got some smudge print on the lens or something, or the camera on my phone. I don't know, because I'm on my phone. I'm doing this with my phone.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I would go. You have to go outside of you have to do a cross examination, right? Or
Mhm.
not so much a cross examination, that's not good, but like a cross referential study.
Okay.
Go outside of the immediate framework or context of the thing and see if you can't find similar outcomes, right? See if you can't find similarities amongst other groups who find themselves in similar predicaments as the subjects being analyzed. But the catch is, you can, before you even do anything seriously investigative, you can see at a moment's glance that these particular folk over here who are outside or who are not a part of the subject being or the thing or the variable being analyzed, if you see that they're in a similar predicament, but they are the products of totally separate circumstances, then maybe the answer or the hypothesis to why the group that you're analyzing is in the position that in the position that they are in has nothing at all to do with your assumptions. Maybe your hypothesis is wrong because
Mm.
these people live the same way. For example, she said that, or like I said, some totally separate group of people are in the same circumstance. She made she said that she's just not realizing that, this little witty remark. I bet she thought it was witty. She talked about the way that, most folk would much rather live in Israel than any other country in the region,
Yeah.
which she indirectly concedes the point. But what she does is she says that, well, the reason being is because all of those other countries keeps getting bombed and attacked.
Right.
And then she makes the case to say that, history didn't just begin during World War. Because what is the unifying thread that all of those countries have in common? The unifying thread that all of those countries have in common is Islam.
Right. But
Now,
I don't understand how that point is missed. And it's not just with her, it's missed by a lot of people who think this way. Like
right,
I don't know, how do you miss that group,
right,
that there's
right.
this is what
Yeah,
they do, the
yeah,
Islamists, that's what they do.
right. And she said, that, and right, and she talked about, I mean, she could try to blame every assassination on a Muslim reformer, because many of them have been assassinated, and many of them have been, whether you're talking about Africa or Asia, and many of them have been assassinated not by outside forces, but they were assassinated by folks from within the countries themselves, these radical insurgency, militant factions, these rebel factions within these countries themselves, because they didn't want reform. They didn't want change, because the reality is that Islam what the problem? Let's just go to it and let's just air it out here.
Okay.
I know we didn't come here to necessarily talk about Islam or talk about any specific topic, just from a methodological standpoint. How do we kind of ascertain what is true? But this is why I think history is so important, and this is why I think you have to do cross-referential studies to see if your hypothesis lines up when you look at a different group who too seem to be in the same circumstance as the group that you are studying, or the object of your analysis, right? So the Prophet Muhammad, what he did in so many words was he took the sensibilities of warring Arab pagans in the Arabian Peninsula. He took their warrior sensibilities, their clannish sensibilities, and he gave it theological credence and legitimacy.
Who is it?
And Muhammad, the Prophet Muhammad, this is what he did. He took, because Islam has since served as the unifying force for all believers. And so different warring Arab clans, this is what they would do. They would fight and war and kill, and they would do all these things, but just on a much smaller scale.
Mm-hmm.
The Prophet Muhammad, he organized these groups, again, his a small group of followers, and they just grew and they grew and they grew and they grew. But he would take, especially Keisha, when you think about the reward one gets for dying for the cause of jihad, right? Or jihad, right? However you can probably pronounce in Arabic, right? What do you get? You get your 72 versions and dark hair, and even Muhammad himself describes them, having big bosoms and big chests, and having fair skin and all these things. Yeah, which was a huge motivation for just to fast forward for the and I'm gonna bring it back. This was a huge motivation for the Barbary pirates during the Barbary coast slave trade, because the African Muslims and Muslims in North Africa, both Arab and Black Africans, they had an obsession with white women. They had a fascination with white women in this, and you can even read this in several hadith of Muhammad. Of course, the hadith of the Sunnahs are the sayings of Muhammad, where when he is recruiting members for, I'm trying to remember what's particular military campaign he was trying to recruit members for. He was trying to entice them to join up with his cause by promising them that they'd be able to have sex with as many blonde-haired white women as their sexual appetites could muster. And so when she says these things about the Islamic world, a lot of people, this is funny when you talk to the Blacktivists, for example, and they talk about how Christianity is the white man's religion, and European did this and did that. But there was only one church stronghold in all of Europe, and that was Rome. But Christianity, and this, Keisha, if you know your church history, some people may know church history, but the Christian land, the land that is indigenous to Christianity is, modern day Turkey. What are you talking about? I mean, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, the church, the church of the church in Constantinople, the church of the Hagia Sophia. You're talking about Antioch, Asia Minor, Syria, Iraq, ancient Bethlehem, all of these places. These were Christian lands, right? And the Muslims came out of the Arabian Peninsula, right? They conquered Mecca, conquered Medina, right? And then from that point forward, the war was on. Keisha, when you hear about, this is my last point, when you hear about people, for example, when they talk about the Crusades, the Crusades began in the 11th century during the Council, I think, of Claremont. And it had gotten to a point where Christian leadership in the West, of course, the Arabs referred to them as the Franks, said enough is enough, because once the Arabs rose, and then after the Arabs, they were bad enough, and then once the Turks became the new caliphate, which in Islamic tradition, the caliphate of the Ummah are the group or the political entity, if you will, that is in the forefront of the struggle for jihad, which in Islam, in their own writings, in their own tradition, they mean to convert the entire globe, convert the entire world into to make the entire globe Islamic, right?
Yeah.
And they mean to do so by force.
Right.
Okay, so when she says the things that she's saying, and she tries to make it seem as though, well, the Middle East simply has these problems because, well, Israel or this or that, but the reality is that Muhammad's military conquest, this has been going on since Abu Bakr, the first successor of Muhammad. This has been going on for almost 15 centuries. 15 centuries the Muslims have been doing this. The way you see the world now, again, Syria, Iraq, Turkey, Lebanon, modern day Palestine, these were all Turkey. These were Christian countries. The caliphate, Keisha, had grown so exponentially. We always hear about the Moorish capture of Spain, but it wasn't just Spain. The Moors the Muslims had reached nearly all the way into central France. They almost took Europe over, to a point where they had to say enough is enough. And that's when the Crusades began, when the Christians finally decided to strike back, because Muslims had been slaughtering Christians by the hundreds of thousands for centuries before Christians even did anything about it. So when she says that, well, history didn't just start in the 20th century, you're damn right it didn't. You're damn right it didn't.
I want to show you this. Hold on one sec. I saw this on Christian's conservative channel. They do the Pop and Politics with KJ. This was shocking to me because they're talking about like Christianity and Catholicism and its connection to the Quran. Wait, I got something to show y'all. Look at this. I meant to have this pulled up. Sorry, one second. This blew my mind, and hopefully you can shed a bit of light on this, because I don't understand why this would be. Sorry, y'all. One sec. Let me just show you. Okay, so this is the Pope. Oops, shoot. Okay, let me see. Add to the stage. This is the Pope kissing the Quran. Now, why would that be?
Well, is that the whole question, or you got more?
Well, I mean, pretty much. I mean, why would that happen? I don't.
Well, let me see. Let me turn away. Let me go to my screen.
Do you know anything about this? Do you know anything about the Catholics and the Quran and Arabs, Muslims? We don't have to go there. I just wanted to point this out. Like, we were talking about Christianity and Muslims and how the Muslims were taken over, and then I was just thinking about this, which I just learned on the Christian conservative channel.
Well, it kind of it's interesting, Keisha, because when I see this, it kind of in my mind, it sort of takes me to another topic, but I won't touch on it just yet. But just as a whole, Catholicism for a long time, and this was part of the I guess one of the main bones of contention amongst the Protestant reformers about Catholicism at the time, was that Catholicism, contrary, it's funny because Catholicism, you correct, I guess correct me if I'm wrong, but from my perspective, a lot of people sort of see Catholicism as the more, I guess, traditional strain of Christianity. If you want to break it up into two separate polemics, Christianity and Protestantism, right? If you wanted to do that, right?
Yeah, so it seemed like, Catholics was the first church, and people, you have to kind of dig. They'll say like, "Oh, the early church fathers."
Right.
I pause people
Mhm.
right there because I'm
Mhm.
like, when sometimes people say that they're talking about popes and then or writers that were early writers about the Christian faith, and sometimes people are actually talking about, when I hear early church fathers, I'm thinking about Paul. I'm thinking
Oh,
about
right, the
Peter.
apostles, yeah. Mhm.
I'm not thinking about popes.
Mhm. Yeah,
So, yes,
right,
no, I mean,
right.
I
What?
don't,
Yeah,
that's what there is a difference. There is a distinct difference, especially with, rituals and worship practices is different.
right.
So,
But yeah, the Catholic Church about the late, I'm gonna say the late 1500s, early 1600s. I mean, for a very long time, and I mentioned before when we were having conversations about the occult, I talked about the printing press,
mhm,
and I think that plays a huge role in this topic, in this conversation about knowledge and information, and just all around basic fundamental epistemology, just talking
mhm,
about the origins of knowledge and information, how knowledge spreads, how people acquire knowledge. And you go from the Renaissance, and when you reach the tail end of the Renaissance, that's when we start talking about the scientific revolution in the late 1500s, and the church's relationship to these revelations that were put forth by a lot of, I guess it's fair to call them secular scholars or secular philosophers, or perhaps a lot of their ideas were seen as such, but many of these men were in fact believers, and that's where a lot of, I guess ideas about the divine, ideas about the
mhm,
transcendent begin to fly in the face of a church orthodoxy, because a lot of, I guess you can call them the free thinkers of their day, were, saying to themselves, for example, that certain, um, uh, I guess, precepts with respect to, say, like biblical cosmology, for example,
yeah,
didn't quite line up with their natural observations. You see, it wasn't
mhm,
so much that atheism was the pursuit to try to discredit God. Quite the contrary. Some of the, I mean, when we're going way back now, we're talking about men to whom, our great, 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 great grandchildren will probably still know their names, people like Aristotle and people like, Plato and these things. I mean, Aristotle was, like he was sort of like the first astronomer, or the first, a cosmologist. And their beliefs were not, again, where they weren't driven by a need to try and discredit the church, or to take people away from their faith, or take people away from their belief in God, but it was to try to forge a closer relationship with God by using one form of
pagan,
knowledge or science or another. For example, to use mathematics,
yeah,
as the language of God, because they
mhm,
believed, and I guess we don't necessarily have to talk about where this kind of meta narrative, or this concrete presupposition came from, but there
mhm,
was this idea, of course, that God is order, and if God orders the cosmos, then man should be able to predict the movement of the heavens
mm,
by simple observation.
mhm,
And when things did not line up the way that, say, for example, Aristotle, or even how Ptolemy believed, because he
mhm,
had a certain model in terms of spherical movement, because for the longest time we had believed that the other planets moved in a circular pattern, but it wasn't until Kepler that we realized that planets move in what's called an ellipse. They're not circular, but they move in elliptical patterns. And that completely changed everything, because once you redefine the cosmos, you essentially, and this is what the church fathers began, and I'm gonna get back, and it all blends into Islam in that photograph that you're showing. Because the church fathers were like, well, wait a minute. If you're saying that we are not on, you know, of course, the solar system is not geocentric. Not only is the solar system not geocentric, but it wasn't Kepler, but what should I say, prior to Kepler, it was the Polish-born Copernicus who put forth the idea that not only is the Earth moving, or not only is the sun the center of the universe, but the Earth is revolving around it, which means that the Earth is moving. Now, if you decenter the Earth, right, then what does that mean for God's promise of salvation? Because if the Earth is no longer the focal point of the universe, then where does that put man with respect to his relationship that he has with his creator, if the Earth is merely just another star, or merely just another planet revolving around something that is much greater than itself, that being the sun, right? And so, and again, a lot of church, you know, the early church, and again, it wasn't the Catholic Church that was opposed to the ideas of Copernicus. It was the Protestant Church. It was Martin Luther and Calvin who were dead set against it, because within the Catholic Church, they embraced not just a kind of theological ecumenism that went outside the boundaries of, you know, traditional Roman Catholicism. You know, you're talking about, you see this photograph of the Pope kissing the Quran. Again, I don't know the context of that photograph.
Yeah.
But some of the earliest mathematicians and astronomers, for example, Keisha, they came out of the region of what is modern day Damascus. So you had a lot of great alchemists and a lot of great mathematicians, which is hence where we get the term algebra, right? We have a lot of words in English that derive from the Arabic, like algebra, or even, to go back to what I was saying about the 72 versions, in Islam, Keisha, they call them the Ein Hor, or the Hora. This is where we get the word whore.
Oh, wow.
Or from where we get the word in English, for example, let's see, what else do we get from Arabic? We get the word assassin from the Arabic. The Arabics used, because it was a
That seems fitting.
yeah, right, because there was a secret order of Muslim assassins called they were called the I can't pronounce it, but it's where we get the word assassin. But the Catholic Church was embracing all sorts of these outside the boundaries, I guess you want to call them, pagan ideas and so on. So, but again, pagans were not just trying to discredit, they were trying to say, if we can understand more, because if God is intelligible, then God must. I'm just telling you what they were thinking, and not to say that there aren't issues with this frame of thought, but just hear me out. If God reveals Himself through nature, right? And so this was the basis, the baseline of the scientific revolution. In the beginning, now, it wasn't to disprove the existence of God. It was to try to figure out his mind, or to understand the order, to understand his order, to understand his mind. Even to fast forward, to go to someone, say, like Immanuel Kant, the great, probably the greatest mind that Germany has ever produced. Immanuel Kant was of the opinion that, well, there is no way for man to really understand God, because for man and his limited faculties to claim, even though you have God's revelation, right, through His word, right, through His holy text, you know, Kant was a believer in God in a general sense, but Kant essentially didn't believe that man could contextualize and harness what God is in words and images and stories, because to do so in Kant's mind would be to diminish God, because in order for God to remain God, He must to some degree remain unintelligible. So in other words, that there are certain things at play in life that mankind will never understand. And those are the things that Kant left for God. Leave what man cannot understand. What did Kant famously say? That he leaves room in his philosophy for God. This is why, of course, Kant's magnum opus was his treatise on reason, right? Critiques on reason. And so to go back to the Catholic Church, and then I'm gonna finish up. It was the Catholics that were embracing a lot of these ideas, and Martin Luther and Calvin were like, these are heresies, especially the Copernican heresy that the Earth was actually moving. The Catholic Church, Keisha, they allowed it because, remember, in order to get a book published, particularly in Italy, because Copernicus was living in Italy at the time when he wrote his thesis on the moving earth, and he completely shattered the Ptolemaic model of astronomy. His thesis was called De Revolutionibus. He presented his thesis to the Pope at the time. I don't know what the Pope's name was, but whoever the Pope was, he presented his thesis to the Pope because you had to get permission from the church in order to get a book published. Right. And so the story goes, the Pope loved it. He said, well, this is wonderful. This is fantastic. Let's put this out. Right. And then when the Protestants were like, no, wait a minute, what the heck is going on?
What the hell?
Right. Now, as Protestant strength was growing, there was a reaction on behalf of the Catholics who were like, wait a minute, the church is becoming ever more split. We have to, I guess, mirror our reaction to kind of mimic what the Protestant church is doing, because we're kind of looking like, well, we're the one, our church, we're not remaining and staying true to the gospel, because what we're endorsing violates biblical descriptions of a stagnant cosmology. For example, I think it's in the book of Psalms in chapter 104, where the book of Psalms says that God created the foundations and they shall not be moved. And so John Calvin was told Copernicus, said, you're out of your mind, you're crazy. And there was a friend of Copernicus's, and both are said to have been members of these secret societies, right? Kind of goes back to what we were talking about a couple of weeks ago. And one of his compatriots, that is Copernicus, was a man named Bruno. This is a famous case of the execution of Bruno in 1600. And this helped to really shatter Copernicus's reputation, because he was said to be a member of the same secret society group that Bruno was a member of. And Bruno was convicted by the Church of heresy because Bruno was saying that the Bible should only be used as a framework, as a reference for moral teachings, but everything else is simply allegorical. And so before Bruno putting this forward, now Keisha, I firmly believe that perhaps there are some things in the Bible that are metaphorical. Much of it is historical. Some of it may be metaphorical, but the church has such a grip on power that they charged Bruno with heresy, with impiety, the same thing that they executed Socrates for. And Bruno refused to come off of his position, and they burned him at the stake in 1600. They executed Bruno. So the Catholic Church, contrary to what a lot of people believe, the Catholic Church was the more, I guess, liberal church at the time. And a huge part of the Protestant frustration with the Catholic Church is because the Catholic Church was embracing things that Protestants, or the reformers, should I say, believed were things that were not doctrinal. They were not related to the church, and they were unbiblical.
Right.
And as a result, the Catholic Church would say, all right, well, we got to meet the Protestants where they are. So we got to get just as heavy handed as they are, or as heavy handed as they want us to be. Because if not, we're going to, Christianity is going to lose its power. We're going to lose the church. Right.
And Paul just said they still are, Chuck. And I was just going to say that too. we see, you know, Catholics still doing the same thing. I'm not trying to go down the rabbit hole on Catholics. I just thought that was an interesting thing when Chuck is talking about how in the past, in history, we are seeing the, you know, Catholics and Muslims come together. Let me play this other clip for you. This is Tucker and Piers Morgan. Take a look.
You're avoiding
Fatuous
asking,
meaning brilliant.
You're avoiding answering my question,
which is why do we have so many guns? Because we're free.
No, didn't ask
Because
that.
we're free. Because no one can tell us we can't defend ourselves.
We all used to have guns too. No,
and then you guys, after the Second World War, which was like a liberation war, and you won, you lost all your freedom, and now you can't even express your political opinions, or they put you in jail. So, like, how did you win? How did you win? Is that what victory looks like? You lose all your rights, your economy gets destroyed.
You know why we won?
Bankers,
we
and
won.
all of a sudden, oh, I won.
We won because I'm not conducting this interview in German, which I would have
it's
been.
a linguistic thing.
I'd rather not speak German and be goose-stepping around my yard in England. Yeah, yeah.
But you are goose-stepping. People are arrested.
Keisha, I can't take it. Go ahead. You see, it's such a man-child. Go ahead, Keisha.
For praying.
We literally won our freedom.
Where's your freedom? Where's your freedom? You can get arrested.
I'm as free as you could possibly want a human being to be.
You can't defend yourself. You can't control who comes into your country, and you can't criticize government policies, or you get arrested. So how are you free? You're a slave, aren't you?
No.
Really? How free are you?
We have cultural problems in our country and societal
problems. Could you go on Facebook right now and say, I don't want any more immigrants in my country, they're making it worse?
You could say that. What you couldn't say, because a lot of these stories, I have to say, in America have been spun completely disingenuously. There's one case, for example, I see everyone trying to send me as an example of Britain's gone mad. Elon Musk has done it. There's a guy who got 7 years in prison. Actually, what he was doing, this guy, was he was orchestrating and directing rioting on hotels containing asylum seekers because he had a incorrect belief that someone who had stabbed 3 young girls to death and...
Whew. All right. So Tucker says, okay, how do we think about this? Tucker says that you're not free, Piers. Piers is obviously from the UK, from Great Britain. You're not free. You can, people are being arrested or fined, arrested for, they don't have the free speech that they once had, let's see. So maybe Tucker has a point. How can you say that you're free? Y'all fought all this, y'all, you are you really better? He's basically saying the same thing that Candace said, but he's going even further to me, saying in this particular, he's like, you're not free because look at your life today. I'm sorry, it's hard for me to be serious because I just find that stupid, because let me say this. I got to break from my devil's advocate for a second. There's a million gazillion things that happened since World War II and today. Are you really going to sit there? And we're supposed to take you seriously as a journalist as you try to say, well, y'all's country did this in World War II, and therefore today you don't have no free speech. How about the politicians that got in there way long after World War II and let all these Islamists and Islams and Muslims into y'all's country? And where was all the concern back when they was doing this years ago? After World War II, decades after World War II, but still decades from today. Like, where was the smoke for them then? Did they not make a good decision when they first started to let how come that argument wasn't being made back then if it was so bad? I'm just asking questions.
Well, yeah.
Stupid.
Yeah. Well, see, like I said, he's a man child. He's a man child, and that's what children do. That's what children do. Kids ask questions. When Tucker and Candace run, I'm just asking questions. That's what children do. But adults seek evidence. There's nothing wrong with a healthy bit of skepticism.
True.
But skepticism should be preceded by a request for evidence or a self so, someone engaging in a quest to find that evidence for themselves is what it should be followed up with. When you simply ask questions, you're just you're engaging in an exercise of severe self-aggrandizement, because the point is not to find the truth, to find the evidence, so that you can try and find some semblance of truth. And oftentimes it's well, this is the best solution that we have for the time being until we
Right.
find something better. But you take time, right? You go about things in a slow, measured manner, because you have to approach the acquisition of knowledge, truth, or whatever you want to call it. You have to approach it with a sense of dignity, or with a sense of humility. Right. But to get off that for a second, go back to Tucker's point, Keisha, like you mentioned, I mean, it's just a bogus non sequitur. It's a non sequitur fallacy. One thing has nothing to do with the other. What
Mm.
Piers Morgan makes the point to say that, I without our defeat of the Axis powers in World War II, Germany would have taken over Europe, and that's what the America Firsters were talking about back in the 1930s. It's just like, well, let Europe do what it does. Europe has been doing this for centuries. We are we are an outgrowth. We are an outgrowth of European civilization, but we are going to show them how to do things the right way, because we are going to take the tradition of Greece and Rome and Europe and everything else, and we're going to take those great civilizations, and we're going to be the developed, the more refined expression, the better expression of all of those things, right? It belongs to us now. And so when Pierce says, "Well, thank God, I'd be speaking German," then Tucker, and just such a child, just seriously, makes
Oh,
these
it's just about
stupid,
linguistics.
right?
Like,
It's not right.
how dumb can you
Yeah,
be?
it's right.
It
It's
ain't gonna, part of it is about y'all sitting up here complaining
yeah,
that people don't even speak English. So
right,
you're
right,
Tucker is the same person that will get on his show and talk about the illegals that are coming here and don't want to bother to speak English. If
right.
it's if linguistics or language has nothing to do with it, why
Keisha,
do you care about people coming over here not speaking
exactly.
English?
Language is
It's a big deal.
exactly a
Communication, are
huge
you
deal.
freaking kidding me?
It's a
It's one of
huge
the
deal.
biggest deals. If I can't come, do you know how
Mm,
many problems happen when you can't communicate? Do you
huge
know how
deal.
many problems? I mean, like, it's the implications of,
Keisha,
oh my, I mean, like,
you.
I am not even well studied on this, but I do have truth,
Yeah,
God's truth behind me, which helps me. He gives us reason. He helps, he lets
yeah,
us think. Why? Because he thinks.
yeah.
I'm sorry. That is, it's just so dumb.
Con-
Look, I'm gonna say this one last thing, and I'm gonna promise.
okay.
These young, I think a lot of these people outside of Tucker are a lot of young people
Mhm.
who, like Candace said, has grown up in the public school system. These kids don't know how to think. They can't, they see a headline and they run with it. They don't bother to read the article.
Mhm.
They're not bothering to they're only surface. They don't think past anything. They literally, I heard, I was gonna play this too. It wasn't Candace or it wasn't one, it was just it was a random YouTuber. And she's like, oh my God, Trump is ending Medicaid. He's kicking the old people off of Medicaid. What are we gonna do? I don't know what to do. And then the lady is like, she's like, oh, I have this this nonprofit that kicked 88,000 people, that's a part of this thing. I'm like, wait a minute, a nonprofit. Medicaid is not, you can go straight to the government. What does she mean nonprofit? So I'm like, okay, this is not true, because you're talking about your own organization. You're talking about you're losing grant money. You're not talking about Trump kicking old people off of Medicaid. But you know what I'm saying? That
Yeah.
little word, that one word, nonprofits are unable to keep their old patients. Oh, but if you keep reading, nothing of what she said was true. But you had YouTuber, oh my God, they're kicking the old people off the. You didn't listen, and you didn't take 1 second to think just a little bit deeper into what the heck she was telling you. I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. No, Keisha, look, this whole thing, just to go back, this thing about language. Oh, of course, Tucker, because language, we're talking about the knowledge, how we learn language. When you think, when you think, how can I put this? I mean, there's so much psychological literature on this, in terms of the connection, the almost the neuropsychological connections between language and thought, right? It's like, in other words, it's language has its own conscious. It has its own language. These words, these complex utterances and symbols, they contain within them a repository, not just of knowledge, but a repository of experience. And that's what's most important, because when you speak a certain way, you think a certain way. If you speak French, you think like a Frenchman, you behave like a Frenchman. You speak like an Englishman, you think like an Englishman, you behave like an Englishman, right? And ingrained within each and every last language, each and every last dialect, are the great ideas, thoughts, people, individuals that spoke in that. I mean, again, I don't mean to make it sound magical, but it's not something supernatural. Quite literally, we here in the English speaking world, the Anglo kind of empire, we are the way we are, and we speak the way we speak because we are actually living out this kind of collective English tradition, this collective English experience. And that's key. And in that, and with that comes all of the great, from talking Irish, Scottish, talking Adam Smith and John Locke, and these people are with us in our dialect, in our tongue. And even though we don't understand, it's a certain personality that comes along with that. You understand what I'm saying? Like I said, Italians, just because you speak Italian, you have a special kind of relationship to Machiavelli. If you speak French, you have a specific relationship to Rousseau and all the other great important French thinkers throughout the centuries. Nicolas Condorcet. All these people. You think you behave, you carry that wisdom and that collective experience with you from years that have gone, because true wisdom is unarticulated. It's not spoken. And this is the truth. This is the difference between, and then when you listen to, I almost said Keisha, when you listen to Candace and people like Tucker Carlson, right? They take it upon themselves to look down their nose at the people who came before them, as though their individual lives can outweigh the collective wisdom of people that came before them. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way.
So spot on.
And this is
you are that is so right. I've heard y'all heard me mention Michael Heiser. I don't know if anybody else has said it. I feel like somebody else has said it, but he has also said, when the Bible was written, it was written to you as a Gentile, to you, but I'm sorry, it was written for you, but not to you. Meaning when you read the Bible, and this is what my spiritual father taught me, I am so grateful. The more I hear Candace and Tucker, I am so grateful that I got a great biblical foundation because Tucker and Candace need to be discipled. If they even are Christians, they need to be discipled because they have no discipleship. They don't know. Do not listen to these people for biblical anything. But if you have to put your mind, you have to put yourself in the mind of a first century Jew when you're reading the Bible, because the language, how they speak, and the things that they observe, the way they talked about things. For instance, it was not weird for Jews, first century Jews, to talk about, very supernatural beings. Supernatural being. They did not freak out when a demon was coming through, or there's like that. Would the fact that it could be cast out was the anomaly. The demons itself, or supernatural things, were not foreign to them. Why? Because in their time, that supernatural things were very common. Literally, these are people who knew that God himself split a freaking ocean for them. They carried that in their language. They carried those images. They carried all. That's why we have oral traditions that are passed down. Like for him to be so dismissive of language and the Tower of Babel.
Right.
There's so much. Okay, but
see, another point that Piers makes, and Piers is absolutely correct, because it's like this, and this is what conservative. Well, it's hard to say in a sentence or even two what conservatism is, but I'm going to hit you with a quote from the late great Sir Roger Scruton, who for me is one of my, people, I get it. Tom Sowell, much respect. I'm a huge fan, a huge student, a disciple of sorts of Thomas Sowell. But, like for me, if you want to get to really know what conservatism is and really understand the world in a very fresh and unique way, of course, stay in your holy books, your Bibles, I would encourage you, read, C.S. Lewis and R.C. Sproul, the great thinkers, and even someone of Catholics that I admire, like Fulton Sheen and like G.K. Chesterton, and I believe Tolkien was a Catholic as well. I love their ideas, their thoughts and works. But Roger Scruton was for me, it's like one of my conservative idols and heroes. If you really want to know conservatism on a sublime level, that's the word, a sublime level, you got to get to know Roger Scruton. And I think it was either he said it or he may have been quoting someone else, but I think he himself said it. He said, "To live is to delay. To live is to delay." It's like, we all know that we're going to die. The question becomes, what kind of life do you want to have? What kind of life do you want to live? Right? The quality of life. How well, how confident are you that, when it's all said and done, you can say with certainty that you enjoyed the life that you lived, even though you know that one day it's all going to come to an end, right? We must conserve the good, even though we know that all things are subject to change and that all things are not meant to last forever. But the more we can slow it down, we can increase our quality of life by delaying that inevitability that must come to us all. You're all going to die. We're all going to die. But we must delay the inevitable if we're going to live. When Piers Morgan says what he says about, I'm not speaking German, it's like, yes, the West has its problems. One of the most important books of the 20th century was, I mention this book all the time, was The Road to Serfdom by Friedrich Hayek.
Mm.
Friedrich Hayek wrote, I believe, I'm trying to remember the year of its original publication, but Hayek was warning. Yeah, it was shortly after the Second World War. And Hayek was warning the West. He was warning, but was primarily Great Britain and the United States. The book Road to Serfdom became immensely popular in both countries, but it really took off in the Americas. And Hayek was warning, when essentially, hence the title Road to Serfdom, he was saying that the West is moving toward serfdom. Why? Because in so many words, the West was beginning to embrace socialism. He identified how the socialist Marxist roots of Nazism, and he was saying in his book, in a nutshell, that what's the point of sending men and women, or sending men and women back then, sending men to fight and battle to topple a regime, only to then turn around and embrace its ideas. So that's kind of like what Tucker was talking about. That's kind of like what Tucker's point, right?
Yeah.
But remember, to live is to delay, delay, because it could have happened a lot sooner. To delay your conquering, you don't say, well, we will continue to have problems, because the woke right, the woke left criticizes America for its ideals. The woke right criticizes America for its failure to live up to its ideals. I forgot who I heard say that. It might have been James Lindsay. I can't remember. But because America does not live up to the standard of perfection that Tucker has in his mind, then that means, then what was the point of fighting World War II anyway? Here's the saying in so many words, well, hell, at the end of the day, it bought us more time. You and I are sitting here talking to one another, and as long as we have breath in our lungs, to live is to delay, we still have a fighting chance. Why are you sitting here complaining? The reason why Tucker is sitting there complaining is because I'm just asking questions. He's a quintessential egotistical narcissist, just like a child. Children are like this. Babies are like this. The more and more you grow, the more and more you mature, you realize that it's not about you. When a baby is hungry, the baby don't care if it's on a quiet airplane, at a bus station, in the middle you driving, the baby gonna scream, change my diaper, I'm gonna need to eat, give me a bottle right now. Me. I have to have my appetite, my thirst quenched, my appetite has to be pleased and everything else. Tend to me. I don't care about what you're doing. As you mature, you grow older, you're supposed to grow out of that, right? But Tucker is so narcissistic and egotistical, just like a child. That's why he asks questions, because that's what children do. Why, mommy? Why, daddy? I don't understand. That don't make sense. That's just the way it is, son. But why? But why? But why? But why? But why? But why? Right? And so another aspect of that is that he gets to project his virtue, right? Posing as though he is superior to peers and everyone else around him, because he gets to shout down the world, because the world doesn't live up to some expectation that Tucker Carlson carries around, when the burden of proof is on him, because the world has never lived up to that expectation. Never. The world has never been peaceful. The world has we've never been able to feed everybody. There's always been discrimination. There's always been groups who don't like other groups. There've always been groups that are better than other groups, who do better than other groups in certain areas, and this and that. That's always been the case, and it will always be the case. It's always, again, that's why the conspiracy theorists, it always eventually goes to the Jews, because they're so small and they excel in fields that provide them with a high visibility profile that is disproportionate to their overall numbers. And when you see Jews, you got two options. You can either begin to hate them, or you can begin to hate yourself. Because if they can persevere, and if they can succeed, it's either because they're cheating, they're doing something, or it's because I am insufficient. What's the easiest thing to do? Say they're doing something.
Yeah. Cain and Abel. I mean, this stuff is not hard if you're a Christian. Like these things, this is why it pisses me off so bad, is because there are a lot of young people that are looking for something. They are, God is revealing to them there is something else. There is more to this. And you got people who have these big platforms like Tucker and Candace who are claiming that they're Christians, but you're not seeing the fruit of what they're claiming.
They
Anyway,
think like atheists.
here is another. I forgot to label these, so I don't even know what this one is about. But I know she's making fun of Protestants, I believe. Just take a look. Let's see.
There. Purchase my book that is up for sale. It is Make Him a Sandwich. I'm going to come right out and say it because I have the Holy Spirit just came over me right now on the podcast, you guys. And I'm just going to come right out and say it. Also, who's above me on the Spotify church? Joe Rogan. And I just want to say, damn that Joe Rogan. Do not listen to Joe Rogan's podcast. I'm just going to come right out and say it. Come on.
So this is supposed to be.
What's the accent?
So there were some pastors who were like, what she's saying is not true. And this was her response to make fun of the Holy Spirit. Oh, I feel the Spirit and all of this stuff. So that was one. Here's another.
And factually speaking, even though today the media says you can't debate whether or not dropping the atom bomb was necessary, it was always something that the generals, the commanding generals in the U.S. Army even, said was not necessary. This is a direct quote from General Henry H. Arnold, who was the commanding general of the U.S. Army under Truman. He said, "It always appeared to us that atomic bomb or no atomic bomb, the Japanese were already on the verge of collapse." Just behind him, by the way, Eisenhower. He agreed. He said, quote, "Japan was at the moment seeking some way to surrender with minimum loss of face." So that was agreed upon. How do the people today dispute that narrative? Or actually, a better question is, why do people today, why are the people in the media that are trying to dispute that narrative, trying to convince you that mass killing people is okay, necessary, and also sometimes good? Here's a reality. We have been buried in the belief that we had to join the war because we had to free the Jews from concentration camps. And yet, what is not told to us is that we also then allowed Stalin to continue those concentration camps. We locked arms with a villain to take down a villain. We allowed Stalin to continue the mass murder of Christians, which had been going on for a long time, obviously. The Bolshevik Revolution, which took place before he was in power, right? What happened under Lenin? The massacre of Christians, the creation of concentration camps, the Gulag system. There's Christians being mass drowned in barges. So if this was about preventing an ethnic cleansing, if that really is the story of World War II that we are taught in our classrooms, we had to prevent this ethnic cleansing, which in my view, by the way, is always an admirable goal. Why were we never taught that the good guys, being us, then committed an ethnic cleansing immediately thereafter? Why were we not taught that we allowed collective guilt to be assigned to people who simply spoke German, had nothing to do with Adolf Hitler, did not vote for Adolf Hitler?
I should have been writing down. I couldn't even write down.
Okay,
So go ahead,
we
Keisha.
got
Do your thing.
Hitler, who, you know what? Before that, let's just get with these super chats. Excuse me. DT, thank you so much for the super sticker. Deborah, thank you so much for the super chat. Two of my favorite YouTubers. I appreciate you guys bringing the truth. Thank you. We love to do it. That's what we're here for, on assignment. RTC says, great stuff. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And I highlighted this one. DT says, the biggest problem I have with the rhymes with news people, you can say Jews. Here's another thing. I don't see, I know people are saying like, you can't talk about them. Oh my God. I mean, I haven't censored myself at all. I say the Jews. I don't censor myself either. I don't know, like, anyway,
Yeah,
I don't know. I've never seen that, but Grimes
uh,
what moves people is that prior to the Holocaust, there were no goals to create a free state of Israel. They were perfectly fine with assimilating into Europe. Now, do you want to tackle that now, or do you want to tackle Candace first?
as much as I appreciate DT. She seems to enjoy when I'm on the stream. I'll have to politely disagree with her assertion that there was no push to create an independent or a Palestine. It wasn't called Israel at the time. In fact, the Arabs of the region, they abhorred the term because they didn't see themselves as Palestinians. They saw themselves as members of the wider Arab collective, whether it was Jordanian or Egyptian and such and so forth. They viewed Jews as Palestinian. They were simply called Palestinian Jews. The cause for the repatriation of Jews to the region of Palestine that began in the 1800s, when you had a lot of French, but primarily English Christian evangelists that were visiting the region when it was under the control of the Ottomans. And a lot of people, Christians, and again, this was a goal, and DT could check this and look into this if she doubts me and she what she comes away with, but the push to establish, and this was it was interesting because at that time the British Empire really took the lead when it came to a lot of causes that they felt were righteous. One in particular, of course, was ending the slave trade. The second was to establish or to allow the Jews to resettle in their ancient homeland, and they were willing to do so contrary to popular belief while it was still under the control of the Sultanate. These were the words of Theodore Herzl, arguably the founder of Zionism, not King Cyrus, if you saw my last stream, but anyway, King Cyrus II. But Theodore Herzl in the 18th century, as a matter of fact, give me a second, Keisha, because I have it right here. I don't know. Something told me that I might need this. So here is an excerpt from Herzl. This is a quote of Herzl's from his famous book Der Judenstaat. In English, of course, that means the German state, where Herzl wrote, quote, "The Jews are supported by none of the powers and have no military pretensions of their own. There need be no difficulty with the local population." He's talking about the local Muslims and some Jews that never left the region and some Christians that were still there. There need be no difficulty with the local population. Nobody is trying to remove non-Jews. The local population can benefit from the prosperity that the Jews will bring. Do you believe that an Arab who has a house or land in Palestine whose value today is 3,000 or 4,000 francs will regret seeing the price of his land rise 5 or 10-fold? It's funny how Jews improve your economy, right? And they do. For that is necessarily what will happen as we Jews come. He's trying to make the case to let us back to Palestine.
Mm-hmm.
And that must be explained to non-inhabitants of the country. They will become rich because of us. They will, and this is the key part, they will acquire excellent brothers, just as the Sultan will acquire loyal and good subjects who will cause this region, their historic motherland, to flourish. He said, we will, Jews, reestablish, we will restore and rehabilitate the promised land under the rulership of the Sultanate. And you will recognize and realize that your empire, that is the Turkish Empire, or AKA the Ottoman Empire, will benefit from our allegiance and from our residency in the region. We're not even asking to control it. Just allow us to live there and treat us well, treat us fairly equally, and
Yeah.
watch how you will benefit, how your empire will benefit, and how it will benefit our Arab neighbors.
Yeah.
Das Judenstaat. This book was published in the late 1800s. And it, again, and I just thought in my head to go straight to Herzl, but Herzl wasn't the only one. Like I said, the cause to establish an independent Jewish state in the region of Palestine, this was something that was being promoted by a lot of British Christians, in the 1800s. And half of the British government and many powerful people within British society were against it. Some were against it, some were for it. And when the Jews, after the fall of the Ottoman Empire, when of course the region was placed under the control of the British Empire, of course you had Great Britain was going behind the backs of their Jewish partners, and they were emboldening and strengthening the Arabs, because the Arabs felt as though the British Empire owed them something, because in their minds they assisted in the First World War, right, to disrupt and to destroy and to take down the caliphate, because Arabs wanted to take the position of the caliph over from the Turks. You see, when people think of the Middle East, they think Islam, they think Arab, but no, Arabs, Turks, Persians, Mongols, by and large, and we all know the reputation of the Mongols. Do I need to explain it? Today, the modern day Mongols are all the people who live in the countries that end in the word stan, like Arabistan, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Blackistan, right? These are the descendants of the Mongol. These are largely Muslim countries. Again, that's that through line. All of the
That's the
the ghetto. I know. I picked up on it. So that through line, the similarity between the Mongols, the Turks, the Arabs, the Persians, once Persia became Islamized, the commonality is Islam. But to go back, the British were like, man, here's what we'll do in order to, particularly, talking 1920s, 1930s, in order to curry favor with the Arabs, the British Empire was cozying up to them in hopes that they would distance themselves from Germany and Italy and assist them. But the Arabs were like, well, what you gonna do for us? Because we helped you defeat the Turkish Empire. Look no further than the military campaigns that was led by the famous Lawrence of Arabia, because they believed that once the Turkish caliphate fell, that you all promised that you would give Palestine to us, but they gave it to the Jews instead. So the Arabs got angry, so they say, and so the story goes. But Britain was never, no Western country has ever been all in for Jews and all in for Israel. That isn't his. That's just a lie. It's never.
I've never seen that.
It's never been true. Never been true. It's never been true. Like I said, the Keisha, your boy, the famous Amin, the Mufti, the famous Mufti of Jerusalem, right? He was given that title and anointed as the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, the leader of the Palestine resistance. He was given that title from Europe, from Great Britain itself. And I can name the person who actually gave him that title if you give me a second to look for it. They gave him that power, the British Empire. And of course, the Grand Mufti, he was Adolf Hitler's homeboy.
Well, my astonishment when I found out that the Muslims and Hitler were cool, which we're not going to go there right now, but y'all, this whole thing is a sham. This whole thing is literally the same thing that liberals have done in America with blacks and the gays and the trans, trying to make groups of people.
I'm here.
Okay, making groups of people blame them for everything. Oh, well, we got to have reparations. It is literally the exact same thing. It is no different. Having a group of people that they want to blame for everything, and it doesn't matter what. Oh, you know, you want to redistrict in your state. Racism.
Yeah.
Those dang on white supremacists every single time. Meanwhile, pretty much all the liberal states have gerrymandered up the wazoo.
Yeah.
But it's like people don't take into account that, because I'll hear Candace and all of these people that the Israeli their own government doesn't like them. Their own people are pissed off. Don't we have people in America? Don't we have a left that blames literally Trump for, like, we have some of the same stuff going on in they take one statement. You don't live there, you don't go there, you take one statement and then you say, like, oh, this is supposed to be representative of all the people in that country. Like, it's ridiculous how narrow-minded we are when it comes to a lot of these topics. It's just not that simple. These things are complex. This is not about, oh, the dying babies are just, Trump doesn't care. This is Candace now. Trump doesn't care about the dying Palestinian children. Girl, you didn't either. You didn't either. And they're strapping bombs to these poor little kids. They indoctrinate. You know how they're indoctrinating American children? Guess what? The devil indoctrinates all kids that he can get his hands on. If he has a group of people who literally embody his ideas, oh, I'm going to strap bombs to children. Yeah. This is not a Christian idea, Candace and Tucker. In case I got to explain it to you like this, these are ideas from Satan. I know you care about the kids, but they don't care about the kids.
Yeah.
They indoctrinate the children to strap on. Think about that. Your natural instinct is to survive. They're so good at deceit and deception that they convince children to take on these ideas. Go and just end it all.
Well, that's a part of their jihad, and they're very crafty, very, very, very skilled in this way. And I know individual Muslims, of course. I have to say this, it's almost customary. I know some wonderful Muslim people. It's not about, but again, you have to, when you have a strong if you have a strong sense of first and foremost community, but also you have to have a state response at the ready, right? To prevent folks from violating, certain, not certain, but the laws that, we as the taxpayer, we elected representatives, they create laws. And so, there are certain things that, according to the secular law, that we as individuals, we just won't, we won't allow. When you cannot make concessions for a belief system that that's as the old saying goes, and it is very true, that is stuck in the 7th century, and they waged jihad in a myriad of ways. And I'm not here to say that any individual Muslim that you may know isn't genuinely a nice person. Also, Jews could be nice people, Muslims could be, atheists could be nice people. They can be, and they can also be ethical people, and so on and so forth, right? They may not be holy, but they can be moral. There's a difference between holiness and being moral, or evil and sin, and so on and so forth. Some things may be a sin, but sometimes, we use the term evil, we use it more in a colloquial sense. It's like, right, you have sex with an adult who is of the same sex, that's a sin because it's homosexuality. But if we find out that you are preying upon a child, then that's an evil act. And that's something, not only is that a sin, but you are creating a great moral evil. Not trying to split hairs here, but maybe I'm getting off the path a little bit because that's probably a different subject. But to go back
right on point, let me just say this real quick. Since Candace and Tucker want to cry about all the little babies, all the spilled blood of the babies, you know, a lot of these Islamists, because you're right, there are, you know, Muslims that they don't want nothing to do with these crazy fools, but the Islamists, according to their own doctrine, their prophet Muhammad, didn't he like have sex with a 9-year-old little girl? Is that, don't they have a particular affinity to little boys over there? Don't they have some particular, since we want to be all about Jeffrey Epstein and all the underage kids, that the right has turned into the doggone tree huggers and have managed to literally erase from their memory all the evils of every other group.
Yeah, they're not.
But the Islamic, the Hamas,
they're not.
Zero smoke for these people.
Right. They're not good faith actors, Keisha. They're not good faith actors. And Muslims, I mean, and that's the point I wanted to make before I got sidetracked, and trying to explain the differences between evil and sin, or morality and holiness. But that's this. So there are a multitude of ways by which Muslims engage in their struggle, their jihad, which again, within the context of the term jihad, it means holy war. You know, people try to make excuse for it to say, well, it just means any sort of struggle. If you struggle with sexual addiction or a food addiction or whatever, you know, that's my struggle, that's my jihad. No. What they mean is to wipe out all non-demi, right? And those of us who are considered fellow members of the book, i.e. demi, Christians and Jews, we will be allowed to live so long as we agree to live in subjugation and pay what is called, according to Islamic law, the jizya, right? And all other folk, I guess, are to be killed if they refuse to convert. Christians and Jews, we're the only ones who have the luxury of remaining Christians or Jews, but we have to live in subordination to Muslims. And you just can imagine what kind of life that would be like. You understand what I'm saying? This is why you don't have a large Muslim and Jewish population in Muslim majority, a large Jewish or Christian population in Muslim majority countries. All these lies about the way Israel persecutes Christians, and Israelis are attacking Christians. Nothing can be further from the truth. It's just pure fantasy, pure propaganda. That's not happening in Israel. But Muslims, it's a strategy, it's a task, right? And so, in Muhammad preached this. They can try to deny it all they want, but it came out of the mouth of their own prophet. Right. Muhammad instructs Muhammad was nothing more. He was a military leader. He was a military leader who gave theological credence to Arabic tribal clannish sensibilities. And it was able to forge a consolidated identity amongst warring clans. First step. Second step was they began to see all non-Muslims the way they used to see each other, as individuals who were outside the confines of the clan, right? And when they don't have the numbers, when they don't have the power to show themselves, to come out, they don't come waving a sword, what I mean, like they did when they took Constantinople, when they took Antioch, when they took, when they took, they didn't come that way. Just like they're doing now, I think the most popular name for newborn children in what is it, London, is Muhammad.
Yes.
So their way of waging jihad is, for one thing, they're going to outbreed you. They're going to have more children.
Correct.
That's their jihad. Have more children, outbreed you. And not only that, but you're talking about, and this is what made me think of this, because Candace is talking about, oh, the poor Palestinian children. They literally breed their children to be suicide bombers. It's literally in the Islamic text that the holiest thing, listen to me, Keisha, the holiest thing a Muslim can do is die for the cause of spreading Islam. It's what they long for. They long for a glorious death. And see, and it doesn't matter the technological advancement we have in the West. It doesn't matter the military advancement, the brain trust, the human capital advancement we have in the West. If we lack the will, right? You can say whatever you want to say, but if you lack the will, there's nothing that you can do to defeat an enemy who's willing to die for a cause. What are you willing to die for? Nah, you don't want to do that. You just want to simply ride down your country because you want to lower its fighting morale. That's what Candace is doing. That's what Tucker Carlson is doing. He's trying to lower the morale of Americans to make you ashamed. As if, you know, that other folks in the world have no agency whatsoever, and all of their actions are motivated, or all of their actions are done in hindsight, or their actions are not actions, I'm sorry, but are reactions to your actions. They have no human agency about themselves whatsoever. But see, by saying that, by pretending that's the case, you pretend as though you are taking a humble stance when you do that, but you're really taking a self-centered stance when you do that, because you're taking away the human agency of others. Oh my God, we need to do better, man. We need to. You're making it about you. Even
Yes.
still, by trying to pretend as though you're being humble, because you're going on this undeserved guilt trip with all of this self-loathing. Good luck with that.
I think I have this clip, and then we're gonna end it on this one. I pray I have this one, because that aligns perfectly with this clip. Was it this one? Let me see.
Punish the Christians for Islamic terror.
Because I don't think it's Islamic terror that's taking place.
It wasn't that one. Hold on. But that was another crap show.
Yeah.
Where is it? Okay, let me think. Let me see. Oh, I think it's one of these. Okay, let me remove that one so I can
them. And they have a law firm, I believe, in recommended.
And there is
sorry,
something
y'all. I was
also
skipping around.
that the way that they're going about your question, that doesn't have to prove to you.
So they retained Tom Clare and Libby Locke then, or Tom Clare. So
I would.
That was right when I began speaking with Xavier Poussard, and
story is the allegation that Brigitte Macron
asked
all of that crap.
It went great. He left. Beginning of us discussing various women.
Yes.
And so I judge people according to my experiences with them. And so Nick is being judged according to my experience with him.
But like, what is this?
I don't get
Where
it.
does
I don't
the funding come from? I probably shouldn't even say this, but the only reason I know who he is because someone sent me a video a few years ago.
Who cares?
With this child from Chicago.
My point is, here's my point. They just, what was the dude? Seth Dillon, the guy from the Babylon Bee. He's an awful person. He's just so terrible. How could you be so terrible? He disagreed with Candace. He said she's out here saying all of this crazy stuff, and he, as a Christian, he's like, he said his points. She didn't think he should have remained silent. With just the virtue signaling of these two people. If you do not think that murdering, this is their words, because I don't consider it murder. It's war. It's not the same. Like, it's a different, you gotta like put your mind in a whole nother context. You can't just look at life like regular. You can't look at conflict regularly when people are warring with each other. There's like rules and laws and a whole kind of stuff. But anyway, they put themselves on these pedestals that says if you do not think that these Palestinians, the babies and stuff are innocent, then you are just an evil person. I think that's a quote or something close to it. This is the exact same thing that the left does. I am so surprised that when they're saying this stuff that they don't hear that they sound just like the left, that they have, I don't know, pretended to not condone for the last 10 years. Tucker even longer than that.
Even longer, yeah.
So I'm just like, are you hearing yourself? Or is your head so far up your behind that you're hearing? Like it is so frustrating. I'm doing a terrible job of playing devil's advocate like that. Just what I wrote a long time ago.
I'm sorry. I blame myself.
I cannot take the arrogance. It is so frustrating. I think the frustrating part for me is that these people claim to be Christian and they don't know the Bible. The other part of that is there are so many young people listening to them and they are getting them to appeal to their flesh. Why am I saying that? What is the appeal to the flesh? The appeal to the flesh is blaming somebody. We love to get off and not have responsibility. Give human beings a chance to not take responsibility. Oh, we're in it. So y'all, we have got to be careful when we hear people and it arouses something in our spirit that feels really good. When you're convicted or when God is saying something to you, it's typically not something that feels really good. It's typically something that he's trying to correct within you. So that should be like that's a sign that this might not be what you want. If it feels really good, just a sign. But that's how they're appealing to you. You have to know that there are people in this world. We talk about Martin Luther King all the time. How did he get so far? It was because there were Christians who heard this nonsense that he was spewing and they didn't say anything. They just let it ride, let it rock. Because, well, I don't know, the civil rights, we kind of know. This is how you get bamboozled, because this stuff feels good to your flesh. It sounds good to your ear. You know what? I am sick and tired of these wars and why we got to do all of this stuff. I don't like it.
Yeah.
I don't like it either, but that doesn't mean that I get to go and blame other people for my problems. This is our country. Who let this stuff happen? We did. Americans did. This ain't got here. Let me. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. You roll.
If we feel like another country has so much influence on ours, what does that say about you, the American? How did you let another country have so much influence? Why are you if that's really the case? Because you can't have it both ways. You can't tell me that Israel is just controlling everything, but they can't manage to not get bombed.
Keisha.
They can't manage to not be in a conflict. I mean, why don't they just call up their Jewish supremacy and put it in play? Like, where is it at? Because I be dog. If I was a Jew and I'm so supreme, then let me tell you, I would be calling on all of my resources and being like, hey, I don't want to spend my money fighting. So, handle it. I wouldn't be, if I was Jewish and in control of all the world. Candace Owens said the other day that Jews, that they are the rulers of the world. I believe that was the quote. The rulers of the world, or something close to that. If I was a ruler of the world, baby, let me tell you, I would not be spending my money fighting. I wouldn't be doing that. I would be spending my money I would be chilling, is what I'd be doing.
You
I
know,
was exciting.
you
All
know,
right,
and
I'm done.
it's
Well,
no,
I mean,
keep
I got
it.
worked myself into a hot flash.
It's just, and it's just hilarious. Like I told you privately, it's you know, I don't understand. I mean, yes, we can go to the Bible, we can go to, you know, the Book of Romans. You know, Paul talks about it. Um, you know, I just don't
God has been
understand.
clear. It's
Yeah,
clear. Like,
you know, people who call themselves Christians, or at the very least consider themselves to be, you know, morally decent, if you want to use a bit of a humanistic reasoning, to just sprinkling in there a little bit. I just don't understand how, you know, how, regardless of your biblical interpretation, regardless of your level of commitment to Scripture, or however you want to describe it, how come, how come your sense of fairness, whatever is animating that sense of fairness, why doesn't that kick in when you consider the fact that there are over 50 Muslim majority countries in the world, and of those 50 some odd Muslim majority countries, nearly 2 dozen of them are predominantly Arab. You got one predominantly Jewish state in the world, just one.
just one.
I don't understand. Even when you go all the way back to the Israeli War of Independence in 1948, Israel was fighting a war on 5 fronts. They were attacked by a conglomerate of states called the Arab League. The Arab League, I think, had its inaugural meeting, I believe, in Egypt, if memory serves me correctly. But the Arab League was formed 2 years prior to the end of the British mandate for Palestine with, I forget, was UN Resolution 181, I believe was. But the Arab League began strategizing on what it would do to eliminate Israel 2 years prior to Israel's proclamation, prior to the drafting of Israel's Proclamation of Independence. That's what they call their founding document, not the declaration, but the proclamation,
Hmm.
right? And so when you look at it, I just don't understand how either someone who calls himself a Christian or someone who has any sense of fairness about them, how can you sit back and say, "Now, never mind," right? Especially if you believe that the God of the Jews, or the God who revealed himself through the Jews, if you like that wording a little bit better, maybe that sounds a little bit more PC for you, because for some reason, you know, you act like Jews are so egotistical for making this claim about themselves, when I really think is your inadequacy showing, is your envy and your jealousy showing, because secretly, I think you want to be Jewish. I think you envy Jews for
Hello.
having the right to carry this moniker around, when if you're confident in yourself, especially if you're confident in your salvation, as someone who was grafted on to the family,
Hello.
as Paul says, then what the heck you got a problem with? Just let it be what it is, and we'll all see when it's all said and done. But I just don't understand how the line of folk, and just different type of Jews, Ashkenazi, Sephardim, the Ashkenazim, the Mizrahi, the Falasha. I'm not getting into all of that. Only thing I'm here to say is, it all began with them. The one God, the God of the universe, revealed
Ooh,
himself through the
glory.
Jews. How is it that you as a Christian can sit idly by and allow not just all of these Muslim countries, but all of these left-wing extremists and all of their political organs from the UN on down ceaselessly attack the state of Israel, knowing that these are your forefathers,
Hmm.
knowing that the God, that Christ came through the line of the Jew. That's what you believe now as a Christian. That, if that's what you believe, I don't understand how you can sit back and allow this, to allow the destruction of only 1/10 of the world's population as they're being ganged up on by over 50 countries. I don't understand how you can sit up here and make excuses for this, especially for someone who calls himself a Christian at best, or at worst, at least someone that has any need to adhere to a notion of fairness. How is that fair? But do you say, well, we gotta be America first. We gotta do this. We gotta do that. Like I said, Great Britain took upon itself the task of trying to end the slave trade. Why? because it was the right thing to do. You see, Keisha, it's not an easy thing. If you, and I think I posed this question on Cutting Through the Culture once or twice, that if you have the wherewithal to assist, if you have what it takes to lend charity, or call it whatever you like, use whatever words you want, do you have a moral obligation to intervene if you can save someone? If I'm driving down the street and I see that there's a burning building and I see a child screaming from the window, do I have a moral obligation to stop and try to get that child out? The fire department, they'll handle it. I'm handling my business. You know, Dennis Prager, I consider, a filthy Jew, right? One of the people who gave Candace Owens a platform. Funny how she came up on all these Jews. The late David Horowitz, Dennis Prager, you know, Ben Shapiro, all these Jews she came up on. But you know now, but
that is
right.
low down. And I'm sorry. Okay,
No. But let me finish what I was saying about Dennis Prager, and he talks about how morally lost America is because he always poses this question. He says that this lets him know how a person thinks and do they have moral clarity. He asked them, would you, if you had a choice, you were forced into a situation, would you save the life of a stranger, a human stranger, or would you save your dog? Your dog versus the life of a stranger.
I asked my kids, so this is part of when I teach my kids.
And he said that, and I think he might have even cited a survey I've done, but it was crazy because I think that it may have been a majority, but at least a significant percentage, more so than what should be normal, said that they would save their dog.
That is
as
correct.
If human life isn't inherently more valuable than a dog, even the life of a stranger.
Yes.
No, man, it ain't my problem. I don't know you, bro. I'm not risking my life for you, but I'll save this dog.
Yeah.
How broken are we as a society morally? The moral clarity, and that's what hatred for Jews shows me, is this fog, this haze of ignorance and so much spiritual and mental vice that is plaguing the West. You know, again, we wouldn't even know God if it wasn't for the Jews. And we just gonna sit there and allow the promised land to succumb to this?
Okay.
I can't have it.
Freaking mind.
I can't do it.
Like if you care so much about it, because there's different tracks that people go, oh, well, they haven't accepted Christ, in mass. So that's why we don't like them. They don't, who knows? Most of the time they haven't accepted Christ as their springboard to hate. Well, if it wasn't for those Jews, all of them did not accept Christ. Okay. The ones who were supposed to accept and do what they did, they did it.
Yeah.
They got God's word into the world. You cannot be, in my opinion, a respectful Christian if you don't acknowledge that. If you don't have some respect, because the Bible tells us to give honor where honor is due. And if you aren't honoring those Jews who literally died, they gave their life. You won't even go to Israel to evangelize the people if you so concerned, why you ain't hopping on planes and going over there to evangelize the people?
Right. It's so sad, Keisha.
You got all the smoke for the wrong. You're so wrong. It don't like.
And after all, hey Keisha, after all the fighting, guess what? We talking about. I ain't finna die for Israel. What happened to that World War III that didn't happen? You understand what I'm saying? I remember who was Tucker. I forgot who he was sitting with. It looked very, very contrived and rehearsed, but let's just pretend it was organic. He was having the conversation on his podcast. Some guy, I don't know who he was, and Tucker, he looked over at his phone, and I guess he got the notification that that nuclear facilities have been bombed, and he's, oh my God, oh, yeah, with what? It's just so sad.
I can't stand these people.
Then he starts reading, and then I'm not gonna die for Israel and this and that. It's like, nah, bro, you had your shot, you had your chance. after numerous crusades, and guess what? You lost. The Muslims ran y'all up out of there. And the sea of Christianity went from Asia to Europe because the Muslims ran y'all out of there. You lost. And now Israel is on the front line doing what you couldn't do, doing what you couldn't accomplish over the course of centuries in multiple crusades to retake the Holy Land. You lost, right? Of course, I'm being a bit tongue in cheek, but again, I think you get my point. And all the while, again, we didn't even talk about the persecution of Jews by the Catholic Church during the Middle Ages. That's a totally separate conversation because, again, we're all fallen. There's enough evil to go around. But last thing, Keisha, before you wrap up, just to circle back, because I know we didn't even, I don't even know if we necessarily wanted to talk about that specific issue of Jews in the Middle East and the Arab-Israeli conflict tonight, but just the whole thing about how to ascertain what is true, how to apply wisdom, and how to do these things. You see, people have to find, and I guess it's sort of like my closing statement, people have to find a lane, be conscientious about it, and be damn near obsessive in your pursuit within that field and within that thing. And it's like it's an old saying of Thomas Sowell. I can't remember what book it was in, but he said that each individual is like his knowledge. The knowledge of every individual is like an island. It's symbolic of an island, and you can only exist on that island. You can only control. You can only have command of what is on that island. And no matter how many islands there are, or no matter how large your individual island is, the island will never be as large as the sea. And the sea is symbolic of man's collective ignorance, right? You can only exist on that island, but no matter what, no matter how big the island is, no matter how much you think it would never, your knowledge will never outweigh your ignorance, right? It's almost like Socratic in this way. And so just sort of, keep that in mind, I would say, because I had a lot of ideas I wanted to throw around this whole, I wanted to throw out why. But then this is part of the reason why I brought up Copernicus and Kepler. I didn't even mention Galileo, which I wanted to. And just again, to talk about the issues and the hurdles when it comes to knowledge, what becomes accepted fact, who determines what becomes accepted fact, and whatnot. It's a far more complicated issue and a far more complicated question than I think we give things credit for, because I wanted to kind of talk about how I guess there seems to be this reemergence of the flat earth theory. And I think I have a reason why that is so. But again, that's another conversation because I didn't get to it. But I just want to say that when Tucker, a while back, he was on the Joe Rogan's podcast, and he said that he used to peddle everything that the government told him he believed, and whatever came out of the intelligence community, whatever came out of the FBI, and he just believed and swallowed it, hook, line, and sinker. And Tucker claims, aside from now, of course, Candace, people have been digging into her background with her in-laws and her husband, and people claim that, of course, I know you've probably heard that Candace is allegedly a member of the Saint Pius, the 10th Society.
I don't know how true that is, but I've heard it. Yeah.
I don't know how true it is either, but again, allegedly, or she is allegedly a member of this Catholic sect, the Society of Saint Pius X, the SSPX, or whatever. They're supposedly these traditionalist Catholics who reject the Second Vatican Council and everything that came after it, right? And so you have that where people claim that they're being paid by Qatar, Iran. I don't know what's motivating Candace or Tucker. I don't care. Tucker said a while back that he was attacked by a demon in his sleep. This sort of becoming like this kind of weird tongue-in-cheek thing, not to play around with demons or anything like that. But it's like, yeah, maybe Tucker, maybe he was attacked by a demon. He's still demon possessed. That's why he's talking out the side of his ass, because Tucker has literally become possessed by a demon. But aside from that, to get back to the point, he said that when he found out that the Obama administration had spied on the Trump campaign and spied on his presidency, he said that ruined his faith in the all things official, the official narrative, or that ruined his faith in the establishment. You know, when he found that out, it was like, it's like, wow, you know, finding out that that wrestling isn't real, or it's like, you know, it's like how you felt, you know, when you know, when the Fat Boys broke up or something. You know, it just nothing else to believe in anymore,
Right.
because the FBI spied on a presidential candidate, really, Tucker Carlson. Now it makes me wonder about your bona fides, or at least makes me wonder, like, perhaps you are getting paid by someone, because you had a very a formidable, you were very reputable for a very, very long time. And I know I can't just cast all of that aside and say you were simply pretending, or were you? I don't know. But I don't understand how someone who claimed to be a conservative wouldn't have natural skepticism for authority. You're supposed to, Mr. Carlson. And this isn't the first time that a politician has used the intelligence apparatus to gain a political advantage over his rivals. This has been going on for I don't know how long. LBJ did it. JFK did it to a large extent. FDR did it. Woodrow Wilson did it. Nixon did it. It goes on and on. So why are you talking? Why are you talking like this? So to end it off, here's the huge problem, Keisha. And now that we live in this decentralized media age with podcasting and all these other things, and everybody could just jump online and talk about things that they haven't dedicated enough time to speak about with any relative degree of authority or certainty, because they have to just meet the demand, if you will, the public demand for their commentary, even though they don't have anything substantive to say, right? In this day and age, because anti-authority, and I said this on my recent live stream I did last weekend, anti-authority has become the new authority. Again, you don't need evidence, Keisha. You simply need to say that I don't trust what I'm being told because I don't like the people who are saying it. If it's coming from the so-called establishment, all I have to do if I'm Tucker or Candace is pretend to be outside of the establishment. It's like, no, I'm correcting you, not because I want to curry favor for the status quo, or I'm trying to circle the wagons and close ranks to defend the status quo. No, you are just genuinely and legitimately saying something ridiculous, because that's why I'm criticizing you, because what you're saying is wrong. But as long as you're outside the norm, you can claim the moral high ground and thus claim to be correct, because why else would I be denying what you're saying is true unless it was true? Because that's all you have to do, because denial is admission. When you begin to imbibe this sincere and deep sense of bad faith, skepticism, and nihilism, you don't believe anything anymore, and as a result, nothing becomes sort of falsifiable. Nothing is falsifiable. Any claim has relevance. The earth could be flat. JFK could have been assassinated by Israel. You know, anything becomes the truth so long as you can claim that I am outside of the mainstream. And as a result, the whole point of the enterprise is about asking questions, to deconstruct society so much so to the point where there's nothing left. And to your point, Keisha, that's why they're talking wokeism. Doesn't matter if it's on the left or the right, they're doing just what the left does. When Candace says, I went to public schools and they taught me this and this. No. If you were really paying attention in public school, they taught you exactly what you're saying now. It seems like you're just getting back to your public school education, to be honest with you. But you're doing exactly what the left wants you to do. Because if we don't have institutions that unify us, then we're finished. We're finished.
I have said that is so well said. And just to add on one little point to that, not only will we not have truth, mark my words, they are going to eventually say that the Bible itself is not true. Where else can this go? Because that's the like they have to remain outside of that elite the establishment. Well, the Bible is pretty much I mean, it built this whole thing. That this system, literally, if you read Deuteronomy, which is the Old Testament written by a Jew, okay, you will literally hear the Constitution. You will literally hear. I was just listening to it on just listening to the Bible, just listening to it, not reading it, but audio. And I'm like in Deuteronomy. I'm like, this is our beliefs. Like I had just never I had never heard these verses, like that. And I'm like, oh my God, like when you read it, it was just so cool to hear. This is literally how we got our government. It literally tells you, if you have if you go through something with your neighbor, here is how you just solve that dispute. Have witnesses, and it is how we run our it's where we got our law and order from. It is something sacred, not because America did it, but because it was through God's hand. It was God's hand on this nation. It's been God's hand on the Jews, even when they didn't have a land. When it was, it has been God himself. And so, oh God.
Choices keep you.
Do not, let me just end on it. If we do not examine what people are saying, you cannot go into this thing with a preconceived notion. You can't go in with your lens. You can't read the Bible with your black lens on. You can't read the Bible with your I don't like Jews lens on. You cannot read history with a preconceived notion. You got to go in clear. Because if you go and you're trying to learn any of this stuff and you already have an idea, you won't read. You can literally read the words, but your understanding of the thing is going to be tainted.
Yeah.
It's not going to be real, and it's going to prevent you from having to from getting true knowledge. This is one of the tools that I know that the enemy uses, a preconceived notion of a thing. Why? Because the enemy cannot be everywhere. He's not omniscient like God, and he's not omnipotent like God. So he can't be everywhere to physically, well, not physically, but supernaturally influence you. So what does he do? He plants a seed. And so that seed could be the lens in which you see the world. So everything you read, everything you see, everything you do is going to come through that lens. You got to remove the lens. Right. The only lens, this is why I talk so much about idolatry. The only lens that you can have is the lens of Christ. Any other lens is of the devil. Okay. So you got to remove, you can't have Candace playing in the back of your mind. You can't have Tucker playing in the back of your mind. This person who just talking about this Timothy person on Facebook, you people have an allegiance with evil because you fear telling the truth. You have to know that God knows what you're doing. You don't support for the sake of support who does that. God says that there is no compromise with evil, and that's what this president is, evil, as if no one on the right is wrong. Where is Matt? Block all of this foolishness.
He said, "When the heck?" You see, he just want to get his rocks off, get his thoughts off. How's that even pertain to what the heck we even talking about?
I'm just trying to show you a lens.
Man, sit your ass down.
A lens of hatred for Trump. So this is why
right.
people on the left, they can't see anything that he do because they see him through a lens.
What is you talking about?
My point. He's proving my point. What are you saying?
Ignorant.
Anyway, but
Yeah, nothing to talk about, man. We talked about all kind, man. Sit your ass down, man. The grown folks are talking, man. Go over there.
Okay.
Let's go sit at the kids' table. Take your ass back over to the shade room or wherever the hell you get your
Did we
information
even
from, bro.
mention Trump? Like, did we? I don't even. Anyway.
Man, I think I may have mentioned them for some, but the point wasn't about Trump. It was about, but anyway, man, to go on over go ahead and go watch the Breakfast Club or something.
Okay. Go get your little daily dose of the shade room,
get your knowledge from Charlemagne the fraud.
Anyway, this quest for knowledge has been with us since the beginning.
Yeah.
Everybody wants knowledge, especially the secret knowledge. That's why a lot of these Tuckers and Candace, it's a lot of, just look throughout YouTube right now. There are so many people who claim to have some kind of knowledge that you've never heard before. Y'all better be armed up, because the weapon that is being used is knowledge, and more particularly secret knowledge, which is, what is it? Gnosticism.
Mm-hmm.
This secret knowledge that only people like Candace and Tucker and those who are not part of the neocons or the establishment. It's so BS, stupid. Okay? Y'all better.
So stupid.
Anyway, that is our show for this evening. Yeah, we're doing, if you're new here, we usually do the show on Monday, but my daughter's birthday was yesterday. Yes, RTC, Gnosticism. Thank you so much. But thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back Monday at 8:00. I don't know quite what we're going to be talking about on Monday, but it's probably going to be along the lines of deception or something like that, because that has been where the Lord has been leading me. Thank you. Let me see.
I gotta ask you again, because you didn't ask me. I don't know if you mean we as in you and your audience, or because I'm not. This was not like a thing where Keisha and I were saying we're gonna. Yes. This is Keisha's show. I'm just a guest, so I don't. When she says we, don't expect to see me, because I think she just means her, because she hasn't formally asked me to come on. I don't want to crash the party unless she got something planned she can tell me about.
You are always invited. But I don't know, we might have Chuck on again, and everybody loves you when you come on. I do want to read, let me read these super chats up before you go. Let's see, we got Willie Doc with the super chat, says the dynamic duo of Chuck and Keisha. See? Keep
it up.
Thank you. Another super chat from Willie Doc says conservatism does not equal Christianity. Thanks for the info. You are so right. Conservatism don't even mean
I think a lot of this I'm trying to remember, it may have been Douglas Murray. I was listening to him recently, and I think it was Douglas Murray. He described them as what he described as the irreligious right. And it's funny, everybody, I think everybody kind of settled on this term woke right now, but everybody was kind of playing around with it, because I think a lot of people could see it coming from their own perspectives, their own purviews.
Yeah.
And Douglas Murray, I think it was, I can't remember, anyway, that there is a strain of conservatism, a conservatism that is irreligious, non-religious, a more secular conservatism that was inching more and more towards this irrational Jew hatred. Well, I guess hatred in any sense, no need to qualify it as irrational, I suppose, but it's inching closer and closer toward Jew hatred. And it's good, as we can see, I mean, it's here. It's like, here we are now.
Yeah.
So Christianity and conservatism, aren't the same thing. I mean, many respects. I mean, Islam, I mean, it's a conservative, it's a mass conservative movement.
Great point. Look, I mean, because sometimes, remember back I think it was last year, maybe 2 years ago, when all the Muslims, they went down to the school board to protest for showing the inappropriate materials to the kids.
Yeah,
we were this was right in your city.
Oh yeah,
we were coming together. We were like, All right, they are conservative, but they take it a little like we say, just don't post that, please. They say we got to take you out back and
They'll kill you.
and take your head off. Like it's a different setup. But I don't know. Candace and Tucker, they seem to not mind that brute force, that tyrannical. Though they seem to love it because they never have any smoke for these people. I'm going to say this one last thing. Let me read the super chat, and then this is what I'm going to end with. Thank you so much, 02122. You said Candace Owens sleeps in a
It's in the
tinfoil hat
bonnet.
bonnet. So that just means she's still hood and ghetto. Nothing has changed.
Nothing.
How is America? We had a whole 9/11 that happened to us. And I'm not saying that like we said before, every Muslim is not an Islamist. Okay. But how is America? How are we going to sit and let the same people who,
That's the thing, Keisha.
huh?
That's the thing. Every Muslim may not be an Islamist. I think that's just the
Right.
word. That's just the word. I get using the term, and if you're trying to, you're like in a conversation, right? You're some
Mhm.
type of dyadic or what do you call it? It's just for the sake of conversation, you use that term,
Yes.
right? Two people
Yes.
engage in conversation, right? I get it. And you're trying
Yes.
to convey meaning, and for the sake of conversation, you use the term is Islamist or whatever.
Mhm.
But I think that's the word that we've kind of we use to kind of cope, right? Instead of acknowledging the reality that there is no difference between Islam and Islamism. There's no difference.
It's really not. It's baked
And
into the book. Like,
and the thing, yeah, and the
it's
thing
baked.
is, you're right. But the problem is, Keisha, and this is true of Islamism, this is true of communism or any form of tyranny. It's never the majority. You don't need a majority of Muslims who take the interpretations and take the words of Muhammad and want to carry them out literally and want to do them. The majority of Muslims won't act like that. Especially if there are legal constraints placed on them, and perhaps there also needs to be other kind of constraints placed upon them because many of Muslims see the benefits of living in a secular society. And so what they do is psychologically, maybe we're kind of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, they kind of prioritize other things. And oftentimes, Keisha, just like there are many Christians or nominal Christians, as some like to say, Christians in name only, who don't know doctrine, who don't know the Bible. I guarantee you that there are just as many Muslims, particularly Muslims in the West, who have been to some degree or another assimilated. They probably don't even know what's in their own holy books.
Probably.
A lot of us have this. We take on this or Orientalist perspective to where we look at someone if they speak Arabic or if they speak Hebrew and if they this and that. We have the tendency to think that they're much more pious than we are. They know more about Islam than we are. They're Muslim or they're Arab. They come from this country and such and so forth. And they could probably teach me a thing or two about the Quran. It's like no problem. Most of them probably don't even know what's in it. And
Right.
so most of them won't be like that, but that's just it. You don't need a majority. You just need a minority who is militant, focused, and well organized. And just like that, they will take over, and the good people who are in the majority will be too crippled by fear to do anything about it. Especially if you have an elite group of policymakers on high who run cover for the madness that's going on in the streets. And so what you've created is a two-pronged pincer attack that comes from the top, one comes from the bottom, and the good people become too paralyzed in the middle to do anything about it.
I mean, what the American Revolution, what was it, 3% of the something like that? It wasn't a lot
Yeah.
of people. It
Yeah.
wasn't all of Britain, the majority of Britain. No, it was it
Mm.
was a few. It didn't take
Right.
a whole lot. It Anyway, thank you guys. Thank y'all for watching. Thank you, Jesus Loves You, 02122, all the moderators, everybody that joined. If you're new, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, because when you hit the like button, it actually does push this out. We have to get more voices into this conversation. We cannot let the same thing that happened with the left. They just ran and had the conversations. And okay, we learned. Now we're in the conversation. So we need y'all to like this, share these videos out, and give people another narrative. That's all. That we just give them something else to consider, so they can have an opportunity to choose. That's fair. I think that's fair. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. We will be back on next Monday, but look for us throughout the week. And Chuck, I think Jesus Loves You put his information in the chat. So go and please subscribe to his channel. He has a lot of great content. You will be binge watching for days. Okay. So go check that out. You will learn a lot, and you'll see why I continue to call on him and ask him to help enlighten us all. So thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you later. Bye.
Peace.